first flew in November 1978 and entered service with the US Navy in 1983. 3 years later, the Hornet first flew in anger when F-18s attacked missile bases in Libya in response to terrorist attacks in Europe. But it was in 1991, Operation Desert Storm, when the Hornet really proved its worth. With their ability to switch roles from ground attack to air superiority and back again in the same combat mission, the F-18s were a key factor in the air war. In total, they delivered 18 million pounds of ordnance in 3,000 missions, flying some 30,000 hours during the conflict. The Hornet had won its spurs, and by the end of the war, the Navy knew that it had a thoroughbred fighting machine for its carriers. The Super Hornet entered service with the Navy in 2002, and it flew its first operational missions later that year, patrolling the no-fly zone over southern Iraq. Then, a few months later, when the conflict started, aircraft from the carrier Abraham Lincoln were amongst the first into action. Training Navy pilots to fly the Super Hornet is a massive task, and this is where it's done. Naval Air Station Lemoore, the US Navy's home of the Hornet, here in California. Located near Fresno, Lemoore is a vast facility that houses nearly 250 aircraft. For many Navy pilots, this is where their Hornet training begins, and it could just be their first step to becoming elite Top Gun combat pilots. 16 squadrons are currently based at Lemoore, including VFA 122, the Flying Eagles, led by Commander Dave Emick. So Dave, as the squadron boss of VFA 122, what's the role of the squadron?
Well, we train all the new guys coming out of initial flight training and initial jet training, teach them how to fly the F-18 E&F, the Super Hornet. The other part of our mission is transitioning the Tomcat squadrons, and those squadrons then come over here and we transition them into the Super Hornet as well.
Because the Super Hornet is going to basically replace everything in the Navy's inventory, really, isn't it?
Well, it will. We'll have the F-18C will be around for a number of years yet, and then the follow-on to that is the JSF.
And how do the new generation of pilots, the 21-year-olds, the men and the women that you're training, how do they get to grips with what is an incredibly complex piece of aviation technology?
That's a good question. If I had to do it all over again, I'm not so sure I would succeed as well as they do.
Do you think that kids of a computer age are better equipped to fly this sort of aircraft?
I think it helps, but I think the wild card in the whole mix is they do come here and they're better. They don't fear of the machine. They don't fear of the push buttons. But then when you add the physical aspect to it, you know, the pulling G's and the three-dimensional awareness of what's going on, that's where their challenge comes. But I think in actually just pushing the buttons, they're great at it. How
important is the new Super Hornet to the modern Navy fighter pilot?
Well, to the modern Navy fighter pilot, it is everything. The Hornet was designed from the keel up as a multi-mission fighter. It does, if we need to clear the skies, it does that in an air-to-air role, and it's great at projecting power ashore and hitting the air-to-ground targets. It is the only game in town right now, and it will be for many of the years to come.
Another squadron based at Lemoore are VFA 115. They're on turnaround training, having just completed a combat carrier deployment in the Gulf as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. So what role was VFA 115 playing during operations in Afghanistan and Iraq?
Mostly a striker role, getting bombs on target on time. Obviously, we have a very robust air-to-air capability also. That didn't play out very much in either Afghanistan or Iraq, but that is our capability. So we did some airborne carrier airborne patrol, protecting, defending the carrier, defending the battle group, or defending high-value assets, airborne E-3, AWACS, those kind of aircraft.
And what sort of attack missions would you be carrying out in the operational theater, say in Iraq? What sort of weapons are you deploying with?
We used a lot of JDAM, the Joint Direct Attack Munition, which is a GPS-guided weapon. That was sort of our bread and butter. We also used laser-guided bombs and iron bombs, unguided, dumb bombs, standard Mark 80 series iron bombs.
And of course, the JDAM is going to be probably the weapon of the future, really. It's what the military requires, that precision. When you're operating in that combat environment, did everything go to plan the way that you hoped with the Super Hornet?
It really did. The weapon performed very well. We were very happy with it, and it gives you tremendous flexibility. In one mission I flew, I hit 4 separate targets spread over 250-mile range, and 3 of those targets I got as I was walking to the airplane, no kidding, scribbled down, grabbed a piece of paper that had the target coordinates on it, and then the other one was passed to me airborne, and then I was able to go and very easily attack those targets.
What's the difference between an old-fashioned dumb bomb and the new generation JDAM satellite guided weapon?
With the dumb bomb, Mark 80 series iron bombs that are not guided, I have to find the target. I have to either use a sensor, radar or FLIR, or my Mark 1 Mod 0 eyeball, find the target, identify it, point my aircraft at it, and drop the bomb on it accurately within parameters. With a GPS-guided weapon, a satellite-guided weapon, I have to have precise coordinates, and I have to accurately enter those precise coordinates into my airplane's mission computer. If that goes well, if the right coordinates are passed to me and I accurately put that information in the computer, then I need to drive my airplane to a certain piece of sky within range of that target and hit a button, and that bomb will go find that target. I don't ever have to see the target or anything like that. But, as I said, for computers, garbage in, garbage out. If I don't enter the right information, that bomb is not going to go to the right place.
Dale Horan's squadron could be sent back on deployment at any time. And that, of course, means going back to sea. So although Lemoore is a long way from the Pacific coast, the pilot here must learn one important skill that's unique to naval aviation. The pilots practice their landings on a carrier deck marked out on the end of the Lemoore runway. But it's a far cry from the real thing they'll encounter at sea, when the weather and the carrier's crowded flight deck pose a real challenge to new pilots. Lieutenant Brad Garms is one of the pilots from Lemoore undergoing carrier qualification on the USS Stennis.
Tonight is my first day of carrier qualification in the Super Hornet. What it involves is at the end of our training at the Fleet Replacement Squadron, we have to successfully accomplish 10-day arrested landings and 6-night arrested landings with some touch-and-go landings as well. We spend roughly 3 weeks at Lemoore practicing landings at the field in the same manner that we would here at the ship. Flying the ball, or the meat ball, is part of the Fresnel lens. The Fresnel lens is our optical landing system, is what guides the pilot on the flight path, leading him from an altitude of roughly 600 feet to the flight deck. And imagine it like a wedge of light, and being the widest part being out far, about 3/4 of a mile, and then necking down. It'll start about 26 feet, is a perfect start at 3/4 of a mile, and then it'll end up about 1.5 feet at the ramp for the perfect landing. And then there'll be reference lights, green datum lines, and then the meat ball will be in the middle, and that will be an amber light. And based on the position of the meat ball in reference to the datums, it'll tell the pilot whether or not he's high or he's low on that wedge of light, and then he can make a correction to try and bring that meatball back to the middle of the datums and be on that perfect glide path. My first landing on the boat tonight was very scary. Despite all of the simulator practice, all of the night landings at the field, nothing can prepare you for that reality of breaking out of the clouds and at 1.5 miles seeing just the carrier box and the Fresnel lens. And it was very breathtaking. It was very difficult not to want to say to myself, wow, look at that, and just kind of start looking around. I had to consciously make an effort to get back to procedures and to put that awe out of my mind. To have the opportunity and the privilege to operate this particular aircraft is also very rewarding, and I'm very fortunate that everything has worked out in my favor.
Hearing the Super Hornet pilots talk, it's clear that it's a fantastic aircraft to fly, as I'm about to find out. But before I can fly, I have some training to do, which includes one very important procedure. You know, there's a saying in the military, always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And obviously, one of the worst things that you could ever do in a fast jet like an F-18 is have to eject. That's why training on ejection rigs like this is so important. In fact, it could just save your life.
Eject. 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 Eject.
Morning, John. Morning, Skipper. Welcome for FFAM 001. Today we're going
It's time for my Super Hornet flight. But first, there's a briefing with my pilot, Lieutenant Commander Snake Venomer, and the skipper, Dave Emick, my wingman for the mission.
Our flight objectives are to practice the taxi procedures, maximum power takeoff, aerobatics in the area, slow flight in both the clean and dirty configurations, simulated single-engine flight. We've got aircraft 112 and 125 today. Our tactical call sign is going to be Eagle 01. That's going to be Snake and John, and Eagle 02 will be Elmo and Dave.
51,000 pounds normal takeoff weight for this sort of mission. What's maximum load for takeoff for the aircraft?
66,000 pounds. Beginning emergencies today, we'll handle the immediate action in accordance with the bold face. Once we get the bold face down, we'll call knock it off, whatever we're doing, and then we'll let the other aircraft know what we have, and then we'll back each other up on our PCL. The 122, we're launching other events today, so we're going to, when we check in with Joshua, we'll ask him what areas are open, and then we'll find an area that's open, and we'll work that area.
The briefing over, Snake and I head out to our aircraft. See you later.
Maintenance already has the airplane. They've signed it out, released to us. We'll get it started, and then we'll have final checkers look at the airplane once it's started up, make sure all the panels are closed up, big parts are there, it's not leaking, and then we'll go flying.
The Super Hornet ground crew go through exactly the same procedures as if they were launching our aircraft from the deck of a carrier, communicating with Snake by hand signals as they check that the aircraft is ready to fly.
We're not too late, that's good.
And are you sure you're supposed to be talking the Lamar approach?
Rolling. He's off the deck, first head 9. Here's flaps coming up.
Well, as we kind of look around here then, Snake, what is so special about the Super Hornet? Why do you love it so much?
Well, first of all, it's the newest jet in the inventory. It's got all the advances that we've been trying to get in the smaller version of Hornet. We got the increased fuel, we got the increased doors. It's got the AP-73 radar, so it's got all the bells and whistles. and it's the jet I'd want to fly if I was going into combat.
Yeah, of course, I mean, these aircraft have been in combat in Afghanistan and Kosovo. The crews are happy with it? The crews are impressed with what it can do?
Absolutely. The A-115 was out in OIF and did outstanding work for them.
I mean, this is an incredibly capable aircraft, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, do you guys train for air-to-air and air-to-ground? Do you kind of do that on a daily basis so you can spring at a moment's notice?
That's correct. One of our primary roles would be self-escort strike, where we go into a target area with, say, a division with air-to-air ordnance. We'll fight our way in, drop our ordnance on the target, then fight our way out. We're going to do the low-level route. Roger. This is going to 60
Operationally, a brilliant aircraft then. Fun to fly, an easy aircraft to fly?
Very easy aircraft to fly. As you can look around at the displays,
Yeah.
the situational awareness presented to the pilot is outstanding.
And this must be a pretty perfect area to do your training, isn't it? I mean, it's got everything. It's got flat, it's got valleys, it's got your weapons ranges.
Yeah, it does. It's a good area. We have a lot of airplanes training here.
Yeah.
And it's one of our primary training areas, so we like it a lot. We can get most missions we need to get done, we can get done out here.
Yes.
One of the most amazing things that's always bandied about the Super Hornet is its ability to fly high alpha. In layman's terms, it gives the aircraft more maneuverability, especially when put together with its awesome pitch and its roll. And Snake's just slowing the aircraft down now, and we're going through 20 alpha and only 120 knots. We're at 31 alpha, 115 knots, and the aircraft is still going up through 17,000 feet. That's pretty amazing. A-18 Super Hornet is its flexibility, fighter, ground attack, reconnaissance, and of course, air-to-air refueling. We're going to go and try and subdue some of that now. For nearly an hour and 40 minutes. We've refueled once, taken on 3,000 pounds of fuel. We're now going back down through 15,000 feet across the Sierra Nevadas, heading back to Lemoore Naval Station. Pretty impressive trip. what can you say? It's probably the most powerful thing that I've ever been in before. I think what comes across is it's incredibly smooth, incredibly quiet. Sometimes you don't even know that you're flying, but it's really, really good fun. Flying in such a powerful symbol of US naval air power has been an absolutely amazing experience. The Super Hornet gives the Navy the ability to project power anywhere in almost any combat situation. So, wherever and whenever a first-in force is needed, you can be sure that the F-18 Super Hornet will be the tip of the spear.